Welcome to That Japanese Thing. We're talking about Fate Zero today. My name's Chris. This is a podcast about Japanese culture, anime, and various other things. With me today is Dylan and Yesh. How you guys doing?
Hi, cold
Hello,
and you.
going well.
I too am freezing. For those who don't know, we are living in the southern tip of Africa, and it gets cold in the winter. Some people are surprised that it can be cold in Africa. I've occasionally discovered to learn.
I mean, it's certainly not as cold as it gets in other parts of the world.
That's
But
true.
our buildings are also not great for maintaining warmth, so it gets cold inside in
Yeah,
winter.
everything is built of
definitely a
bricks, and there is no insulation.
thing. None.
Yeah, no, it's not freezing, but it's like 5 to 6 degrees Celsius at the moment, I guess, which is still very cold. Anyway, so we got together at Yesh's house and had Korean food. By the way, never again, please.
I think
My
Chris
bad.
has been traumatized out of being able to eat Korean food at all.
I think that might be true, which
Yeah.
is strange
Thought the
because
Korean chicken
I've
was okay.
no, it wasn't great. It really wasn't great.
It was very fast foody. I enjoyed it, but like I could maybe eat it once every month or once every 2 months.
Yeah, and like the portion they gave us was huge as well, so maybe that was part of the problem.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't order two of those.
I don't know, like
Certainly, yeah.
I think because like you get recommended like these like food videos sometimes on YouTube, and Korean food looks delicious,
Mm.
and sometimes I've made a recipe and it's worked out pretty well.
Mhm.
But yeah, my limited experience with Korean restaurants suggests that I would not like being in Korea.
Fair enough.
But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Hopefully.
The Revenge of Kimchi.
Oh god, kimchi is that is the worst. That is the worst thing about Korea.
I have a fondness of kimchi, but
See,
I
my
know
my
never to order anything with it in
my
it for
my
you.
sort of experience with kimchi is when I was in a dormitory at university. There were a bunch of Korean kids that lived there, and they had a kimchi fridge. It had to be a separate fridge because of the smell.
Yes.
And
that's a
every
smart
time someone opened that door, it was just like death had escaped. And for whatever reason, it was in the common room area. So
Perfect, of
just
course.
every now and then, there was just this awful smell, and I would be like, what, is there like a dead rat or something? Oh no, it's just the kimchi fridge.
You should have told them that they must do it like their mums used to, which is bury it underground during the winter. Once spring comes, you can dig it up again.
Right? Yeah, no, and unfortunately, like, what would they do with it after that? Just leave it out in a jar? Oh my god. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't like kimchi, and I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, Fate Stay Nights was a series before this, which Yesh was telling us apparently people hated or didn't like at all for some reason.
So, the majority of people inside the community of people that follow the Fate storylines, games, and assorted other things think that Fate Stay Night is a really horrific adaptation, largely. Mostly because the people that were making it at the time assumed that they would never get a chance to make either a second season or a in-depth adaptation. So this was originally a playable light novel type game where there were multiple paths of options that you could take. And when making Fate Stay Night, they decided to take the three major paths that you could take, mash them all together, and create an anime original ending.
Yeah,
For anyone who grew up in the 90s, those three together, anime original ending, should make shudders occur. But yeah, so effectively, in the Fate community, it's considered a very bad adaptation.
I don't
But
know.
it also
It
spun
seemed
off
fine.
and created a lot of memes, and the way it was done was okay at minimum.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't amazing or anything. I watched it though.
Hmm
It seemed fine.
It was.
Um, they cut out a lot of like the world building and the darkness and light in the world kind of situation. They removed a lot of Saber's internal struggle so that the story could just focus on our red-headed idiot and then get to the happy ending. But since then, a very strong following has apparently pushed this. I think there's been 4 series or 5 series and about 6 movies or something like that.
Right.
For the Fate series out, totaling more than $1 billion USD worth of currency spent on making Fate adaptations. And the popularity of the games and the figurines is ridiculous and unwavering. In fact, the popularity of Fate has pushed several other franchises to try and copy Fate. It's literally holding up the figurine market to a certain extent. As I did look this up in between, 38% of all models sold are Fate models in Japan.
Wow. I wonder which
If
company
you take
makes
a
them.
moment to consider how many models or figurines are sold in Japan, that number becomes horrifying.
Yeah.
So the company was Kohei or Kohai? I can't remember. Koei.
Okay.
But they are made by lots of companies. Good Smile makes some Fate stuff as well.
Right.
Sunrise oddly did some stuff with Fate. I think they did a cereal or something. I can't even remember. But more importantly, Lawson's 7-Eleven and
What,
Family
like,
Mart.
we're getting
all-
it like a Fate Stay Gundam. That would be pretty.
That would be kind of horrific and wonderful at the same time.
Yeah, no, that would be
But
great.
their convenience stores do Fate convention stuff all the time. So they'll have kind of like how McDonald's does in the West, where when you buy a specific meal, you get like a little toy, and then you can try and collect the entire line of toys.
Yeah.
They get acrylic stands for each of the Fate characters within a run, and then people try to collect the entire run. And apparently, 4 times a year they do this. So people have been there are literally people who have 200 to 300 Fate acrylic stands
Yeah.
simply from how often this runs.
Yeah, they're doing that
it's-
with Demon Slayer at the moment. I think Lawson's having a
Demon
run.
Slayer has become kind of big, but Fate literally paved the way for a lot of this stuff, this collectomania.
I don't know. Well, maybe of this type, but people.
The specific methods, at least at minimum, because Fate started the Lawson's acrylic stand thing, apparently.
Sure. I mean, but Japanese people collecting things in a kind of obsessive way
Has been around for a lot longer. I was about to say,
Yeah.
the minifigure things is not a Fate original thing, but Fate contributing so significantly to that is kind of significant. And then their mobile games, I forget what they call them. It's like Genshin Impact and stuff. But
Gacha.
I forget what gacha games. The gacha games industry.
Which gacha is
And-
that little figure you're talking about, that little figurine.
Well, digital gacha.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's where it
for the-
comes
for the
from.
purpose of-
It's just like, it's a way of extracting money from people. That's why it's called a gacha
from
game.
people. Precisely. But the Fate gacha games on mobile have been consistent, excessive, and long-lasting. So
Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't play Genshin or things like this. I'm just saying you'd be richer if you didn't. But yeah, no, it's fine to have that aspect of it. But that is probably the reason it exists more than that it's a great story, or an original story or anything like that.
I have to say the story's okay and all, but like the influence that it has on the anime industry and on I would suppose otaku culture in particular is outstanding. So I would assume it's more the waifu culture and the collector's culture that fuels it.
Yeah, and
But
also, like,
regardless-
visual novels have their own like very hardcore
Group
fandoms,
as well.
and they've got their like sort of rules of storytelling specific to them. That kind of, next.
Yeah,
to
so
other
this
stories,
was
maybe makes them a
based-
little bit weaker.
Yeah, both the stories were based off a light novel. But I suppose both those light novels are based off the game, right?
Significant light novel. So the game came first.
Yeah.
The light novel, I think, is more in depth and longer. So I suspect that the guy made the game, and then he wrote the script, made the game, and then expanded the script into a light novel.
I think this, yeah.
I have no evidence for that. That's just what I believe happened.
I mean, the strange thing is, obviously, I mean, having watched Fate Stay Night a very long time ago now, I don't, like mid-2000s, somewhere around there?
It was early 2000s, yeah.
It was like just a normal battle, like anime thing. It had like a moderately interesting premise with the summoning of things. I didn't know it was related to a game or anything. It makes sense now, just having watched it, because it is, all the heroes have their own stats and classes and yada yada yada. It makes more sense in a post isekai world. Looking back, I guess.
We also do have this series, or this set of series, to thank for the creation and expansion of Ufotable, one of the now biggest animation studios in Japan. At the time this was being made, they were just getting started, and
we have lost Ayesh there, but we'll come back to that in a moment. But yeah, Ufotable.
Sorry about that.
I think you say
Ufotable, yeah.
I think you say Ufotable. Some people just mash the letters together and make their own things.
Unfotable.
Unfotable, worse sounding things. I mean, it wasn't like their first thing, right?
It wasn't their very first production.
It's probably the first notable one.
Productions. They had very, very small productions. They were a new and starting studio.
Yeah.
And then the Fate people just poured dumpster trucks.
They haven't actually made a whole bunch of other stuff since then, to be perfectly honest. So they've made Demon Slayer is the notable one. And apparently they're making a Genshin Impact series that's coming out soon. So they have a niche, it seems.
It should be noted that is also one of the big.
Well, whatever you're trying to say there, we'll go back to the story. But yeah, what I was gonna say, Fate Stay Night's storyline, I think, was worse than Fate Zero from what we've seen so far. We watched the first 12 episodes of Fate Zero, which is the first season, more or less. And the animation is better, except for the fact that they use very bad CGI for all the backgrounds, and that's kind of really noticeable for me. Yesh seemed okay with it more than I was. But they do a thing where it kind of just looks like the characters are floating every now and then on just like a digital sea. That bugged me a bit. But the actual drawing of the characters is much more refined than in the previous series.
I do want to say that this is a 12-year-old anime at this point. We have seen worse CGI from anime released
this year
more recently.
Yeah,
this year even. Can't forget that farming scene ever.
But I mean, yeah, it's some parts of it don't hold up in terms of looks. Yeah, even though it is quite a good looking series overall. Have they made any other Fate stuff post Fate Stay for Fate Zero?
Yes, certainly. So, Unlimited Blade Works and some movies were also made by Ufotable.
Okay.
So there's 2 seasons of Fate Zero. Then there's 2 seasons of.
Fate Stay Night Unlimited. I see. But that's all from Ufotable. At least there might be some OVAs and whatnot.
Movies,
just in terms of series, yeah. Okay, so there's not a whole. It's not like it's not a Gundam amounts of content here or anything like that.
It's not Gundam amounts. No, it certainly is not that.
But yeah, I mean, a bunch of famous YouTubers and stuff have a lot of interest in Fate, and you are right that it's influential. I don't know if it's influential to the extent that something like Demon Slayer or something bigger like that is. But it might be. But it just seems like something I feel like I would have heard more about if it were like a foundational kind of part of, I don't know, anime, like the last decade or so.
Well, I mean, it's almost inarguable that it's been behind a lot of sales and creation of franchises. Many of these guys making new anime often say that they're trying to beat Fate Zero. The producers, I mean, specifically.
Right.
Not in the year 23, but
No.
certainly I heard it repeatedly. Who are the guys that made Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann again?
Got the what are the names?
Trigger.
Trigger. Yeah.
Sorry. So they weren't Studio Trigger when they made that, but
No, yeah, but the
Studio
same guys.
Trigger in particular has mentioned this as influential behind why they are making some of their shows, specifically Promare. But other than that, I will say in the last 5 years, perhaps, its influence is a lot less felt.
Yeah.
But from 2011 till sort of 2019, 2018, this was mentioned as one of the big anime that people need to watch.
So I mean, the premise of this, right, is there are historical figures from the past that are somehow being summoned as they're called servants
Servants.
to fight in a Holy Grail war. This is the fourth one, followed by the fifth, which would have been the first series. I know that's a bit confusing. I hate it when shows go back in time, because everything just kind of doesn't work out.
There's contradictions if you think about it a bit.
Yeah.
But we have to kind of assume that this is not associated with that directly. Because that was made by a different studio and everything as well.
But there are characters in this show that become characters in the next show. Right?
Kind of, yeah.
The
Although,
little girls, for example, will be characters in the next one.
All three little girls
Yeah.
proceed on into the next one, yes.
They are the three heroines. Notably, this is like a less girl-heavy kind of series than the next one will be.
Because Shiroi is the only male, pretty much the only male. Actually, Sakura's brother's in the next one as well. So
Yeah, most of the protagonists of the next series are females. In this,
three.
Three of them, and this one doesn't feel so fan servicey. The other one's a more standard anime format where you have your kind of loser protagonist who gets a magical power which makes him special, and then women kind of come into his life, right?
Well, I mean, that's pretty standard in isekai nowadays.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that's the standard of anime in general.
I will
This one
say-
isn't so much that. This is just a kind of
Fate Stay Night.
slow.
was
Fate
made-
Zero, is not that
Sorry.
at all. Yeah.
No, yeah. But Fate Stay Night was made in an era where that was more popular.
Sure. It's still popular. I mean,
And
as you say,
Luther and
that's
C and
that's
all
still like the foundation of bread and butter anime that come out every
It's
season.
really difficult to get away from, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well,
One of the things that I
the
keep
fan
coming
service element
across.
in particular is not going to come back significantly. We've got some fan service in that some of the servants show off a lot, but that's true of both the male and the female servants. It's just
Yeah.
they're supposed to be bombastic.
I mean, this one reminds me of like a Chinese war story, Romance of the Free Kingdom kind of vibe, you know?
Kind of thing, yeah.
Just historical
I can
heroes fighting it out.
Completely see that. But yeah, the basic premise is that the spirits of the heroes of the past are being called to serve in the Holy Grail War because the Grail itself will grant a wish. And the servant and the master are people that both need to have a wish to fulfill. And
Yeah,
then
a
only the
wish
winner
or several
gets to get
wishes,
them.
or can do a number of things for the person. It's kind of unclear what
It's-
the exact power is.
The Grail can grant you the ability to alter reality in some fashion.
Yeah, I mean that much is clear. How much you get out of it is the unclear part, I guess.
And also the fact that nobody is quite certain how much is also part of the story to a certain extent.
Yeah,
I think part of the point is if the Grail can't grant something, fighting for it anyways, regardless, is kind of part of the bloodshed because I want to aspect of it.
Yeah, certainly all of the people who are participants in it. I don't know. I mean, I think they did it a lot better in Fate Zero. There's
It
less
certainly
of
feels like every master has some plot going on and every master is involved. Where in the previous one, we had like an enemy of the week situation.
Yes.
We focused on a single enemy, Shiro cried a bit, and then we beat them.
And then most of the other kind of characters, I can't remember exactly. It was more like a kind of a selfish, you wanted for this worldly desire or that, money, power, or immortality.
Which actually brings us to one of those weird questioning moments. Because one of the characters expressly, Koto Mine Kirei-kun, a priest character in this, does not have a personal wish. Which everyone is super confused about and quite certain that that's a lie.
It
But
seems
even
that way.
he himself is uncertain what his wish is. He knows he has one now because he's been manipulated and tricked by Gilgamesh, the best character in the show. But
this remains true throughout both the shows I've seen so far.
Yeah. But effectively, he had to be conned into understanding that he has a preference because he's so dedicated to the church in his own opinion that he doesn't have a personal wish. But he certainly does. We just don't know what it is. And I think it's kind of cool that as a viewer, I don't know what it is, and he doesn't know what it is. It's in universe that everyone is confused.
It's a bit mystery boxy, but it's fine as a mystery box.
Mystery box is only a negative if it doesn't resolve well.
It is contrasted by Gilgamesh's sort of just complete
open
live.
For
yes,
everything.
yes. I mean, he'll tell you exactly what he wants and what he's going to do to you after he achieves his goals, so on and so forth. But yeah, the other characters, we have Saber, who is a reincarnation of King Arthur, who is a woman, apparently, in this universe. So King Arthur was a woman, but pretended to be a man in this universe.
So that she could fulfill the role of being a king, because no one else, apparently, in her court thought they could fulfill the role quite as well as her.
Yeah, it
But
has...
as we delve into her story,
nothing to do with the fact that the author of the light novel couldn't see a way clear of not having the main servant as a woman for the protagonist.
No. Certainly it's not because of waifu power. That couldn't be it.
No reason at all behind that.
But in universe, in story, she's a kind of a martyr character. She's been called Joan of Arc, which she says is not true. But based on the fact that she has been summoned before and has no memory of those previous summons, it's entirely possible she was Joan of Arc, maybe? We don't know yet.
Wasn't there something about that in the first series as well? Or was
that
there
she has no memory of her previous summons. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But we don't know that she was Joan of Arc in that as well. Please also try to remember that the first series is effectively hogwash. It's lies.
Well,
because they had to anime original everything so that we wouldn't question what else is going on. And they also cut out all of the Magic Family business, which is front and center in this show. So she was a martyr type character that was effectively put in command of a fallen country, and then when it fell, she felt such great regret that she became a summon. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I love Ryder from this one. Ryder is Alexander, the Great Alexander.
Alexander the Great, yeah.
He is the most bombastic personality, which is weird to say in a show with Gilgamesh. But he literally goes out, grabs alcohol, and hosts a party of all of his enemies to find out who is worthy of perhaps winning, because he'll only face those people. And after hearing what Saber went through as a king,
isn't that how the real life Alexander the Great died? More or less?
I think there's something related to that. Although I will say I think it's funny that his chariot's called the Gordian something, the Gordian oxen or something.
The Gordian wheel, maybe?
The Gordian wheel. Because that's also related to his mythos.
Well, the Gordian knot, is part of his thing.
But he laughs and says that she's not a king because a king's not supposed to be about suffering. A king's supposed to be about everyone wanting to be you.
Yeah.
The greediest, the happiest, the saddest. And I can't help but feel like he's absolutely right. So
I mean,
he wins every time he's on the
I
screen.
think his charisma is what sells that, isn't it? More than anything.
Absolutely. I mean, he's
You would
spitting some
you would
mad
hate
shit.
to be in his kingdom, living under a king like that, right?
I don't know. That's the thing. What he's saying actually has a degree of sense. Loyalty because of duty is dumb. People will abandon you.
But you
Loyalty
don't
because of
want the
respect is
king
something
of
else.
the kingdom spending the treasury on a whim, right? Like Saber wouldn't do that, maybe.
True, Saber wouldn't do that, but remember, a king that does occasionally dumb things, but the things that make you proud and jealous, is
Yeah.
still someone you want to follow. That's his point.
No, I understand
Responsibility
that. That
doesn't
might be
make
great
you-
for him and his, cohort of 1,000 soldiers who went on a murder rampage across Eurasia.
Indeed.
Probably not great
kind of a-
for
kind
like
of
the
its
guy doing
own
the
problem.
farming, or the guy doing the accounting. Probably it'd be
That's-
pretty great working for Gilgamesh, accountant-wise.
Gilgamesh. Because all of the things come in, none
Yes,
of the things go out.
it's all black ink.
And then, apart from these, I think I've mentioned all. Oh, Castor is the only remaining summon I haven't
Oh, right,
talked
yeah.
about. Castor is a child murderer, necromancer.
So
and
he introduced
he's a
himself
summon.
as Bluebeard, who was a French child murderer, and
And
then
he
as
brought up
Gilles,
Gilles- Sorry,
Guy.
something. Gilles de Guy, yeah, thank you.
who's
Who-
a
Yeah.
great French child murderer.
Yeah, and well, the French thing is the connecting part there, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was summoned by a guy who casually kills people for fun. So while all of the background stuff is happening with this entire war for the Grail and all, that these two are gathering classrooms of children and sacrificing them. And I will say, even if it's inappropriate, it was so out of left field and dark that every time they brought up how many children they sacrificed, it sent us into little giggle fits. Because we were dealing with this like political intrigue drama thing to perhaps start a war that's going to like end civilization, maybe.
I
And
mean,
then
just
there's these two chuckle fucks in the corner going, 43 kids this time.
yeah, they have no interest in competing with anyone really.
They're completely simple. They're not involved in the
There was
war,
just
they're
one
not
part
involved in the
where
politics.
Someone kind of invaded their place and freed some of the kids or disturbed what they were doing with the children. And we were just making jokes about, oh God, we're gonna have to find a new elementary school. And then like the next scene, hard cut to elementary school.
It was horrific and yet so like out of left field that it made us laugh.
It is a really
Um,
dark show.
Yeah.
And
There's
I
some
don't think
dark
it's probably as dark as the actual light novel, because they probably left out a bit of, not safe for work stuff. But I mean, there's a guy who's being eaten alive by bugs,
Inside of him. Yeah.
as well as a little girl who's having something similar done to her.
Yeah.
So that's the
it's like
Mato
really-
family.
Then
Yeah.
there's the child murdery things, as well as
it's like a lot
just
of,
some unpleasant kind of pseudo-Nazi imagery, as well as, I don't know, a bunch of kind of tortury stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Children are being sold from family to family for their bloodlines,
And then tortured.
and then tortured.
But it's
As you do.
suggested that that's all part of the ancient
Traditions,
spellcaster
yeah.
traditions. So stuff is happening that doesn't make entire sense for the modern world, but everyone in it is treating it as pretty standard.
And,
This
and
is
then there's
how
like a class
magic
of
families
being called homunculi in this, which aren't explained, but they're fake humans who've been grown as artificial servant
People.
masters, maybe.
So
That's
they
how
can't
it's
act as
explained.
masters. They don't have enough magic for that. But we do know that they are constructed beings, and
Right.
the one that we are following in particular is falling apart.
Yeah, which is, I mean, in itself quite horrific. But yeah, that being said, it's not unpleasant to watch. It's not like you'll be, jumping behind the couch kind of with all this going on. It's not a horror.
No,
There's
it's
just
got
there's
horror
just some
elements,
horror
but it's not-
elements. Yeah,
It's
a
not
dark
leaning into
fantasy
it.
kind of thing
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say that I'm very grateful that there's a lot of details happening, so that you can always grasp onto more and more of this world as you're going. Because initially it felt like I was getting a lot of jargon thrown at me, and it felt like I was having a hard time getting into it.
Yeah, episode 1, you
after-
definitely are like looking left and right, trying to work out what's going on.
What's going on? By episode 6, I think I was in. I'm not going to say that I loved the show or anything, but I was certainly more like, when things were happening, I understood more than 60% of it, and I was under the impression that whatever I didn't understand would be explained. I had faith that things were going in a positive direction.
From what,
And,
from what I've read, just briefly on it, it seems like there was much more of a plan behind this series, this light novel series, than there was on the first one. So I guess that all makes sense. The first run was kind of just like a free flow kind of let's see what happens idea. But this
So-
one, the author had some more time to think about
More
the
time to think about
characters
it.
and what they would do.
So
and-
they call what was the first run of this a web novel because it wasn't published. So it went through an entire publisher. So a publisher sent an editor through to the author, and the two of them edited that web novel into a light.
Oh, it was a visual novel. Okay.
Mm.
Initially.
Yes, yeah, a visual novel and game.
Right.
And they edited that slightly jumbled mess. Although it was popular, so it must have had something going for it.
Sure.
Into something much more coherent, which
And
is what we are watching right now.
Publishable.
And publishable.
Yeah.
I will say, in particular, the stuff that was happening to Sakura, the girl that was given to the Mato family that got thrown to the bugs, was described a lot more.
No,
in
I mean,
detail.
I don't think we can talk about that on YouTube.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. In more detail, in the web novel.
Nor do I want to.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to think about that. That was just super gross.
I've never gone and looked at that. If that
I think
makes any
so.
difference.
I think like the point is like trying to. Not that we're going to chat about it, but like the point is, to put it in simple terms, there are like three main magical families, right? The
The
Sure.
Matos,
Tosuckers,
the Eisbens, and the Tosuckers.
yeah, so the Matao are like the really creepy kind of
Bug
do horrific
family.
things. They're not like a family.
Yeah, they're
They're horrible.
they're the dark arts teachers of
The
Hogwarts.
Ironsburns are like the sort of benevolent nobility that seems to kind of pervade a lot of anime media.
They're kind of like Russian nobility in a weird way.
That's the
they're-
aesthetic
they
for
look-
sure. eh?
It's like the romanticized version of it. You know, they're there for the best reasons, and they're
I don't know. I feel like we are being told that the Eisbens have done their own trickery before this.
sure.
I mean, what they did to Irisville is also not a good thing. I think all of
Yeah,
the magical plays are
Which is
bad.
kind of actually a good point. We don't really see many people who are actually Ironsburns.
Eisbens themselves, because we're actually
we
following
see the homunculus, we see the
Emiya Kiritsugu,
The,
who's
the
not
criminal
a
guy, yeah.
the assassin
Yeah.
who isn't. I mean, he's
But
not-
the people
he's not
that
an
attacked the
Ironsburn.
castle were saying
Yeah.
that they expected to encounter monstrosity, which suggests to me that the Ironsbens summon monstrosities. I don't know what that means yet,
And the-
but
and the-
I don't think they're good guys.
The
The priest guy family that he serves. That seems to be the better morally of all the families.
So I get the impression that we're supposed to feel like they're better because they seem more refined.
They're also
the
not
further we
throwing away their children, are they? Was that the
so-
family that sold the child?
No. They're the family that sent the little girl to the farmland
To be away from the war, right?
to be away from the war.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they haven't done anything except being mildly creepy.
Overtly negative. But they did set up that false attack with Assassin and Argo.
Sure. But I mean, you could say that's just sort of like war tactics, right?
Tactics.
Rather than.
They also summoned Gilgamesh, which is an automatic you bad guys.
I mean, so they have Assassin and Gilgamesh, who are perhaps the most
Morally black.
morally
amongst
grey of the
the
servants.
summons.
Yeah.
And then, like you were saying, these are the guys that have the Germanic, somewhat mildly disturbing, perhaps Nazi-ish affectation to them.
The
Because
you got
the leader
got
guy
like Herr German and Fraulein who are
is
doing
in a
very strange
basement,
things.
and he's doing all kinds of German things in that basement. His magic is Joel Croft magic,
Yeah.
and it's largely been used to kill people, except for the one time it was used to help save his daughter.
And then his sort of mistress or wife, I think wife,
It's his wife, yeah.
just decides to strap him to a table once he gets injured, lock him in a basement,
Oh
and
no, no,
take
no!
control of his.
That's
a
that's an
different
entirely different guy. He's not part of a magic family. He's a teacher at a magical academy
Right. Okay.
With good lineage as a mage.
with good lineage.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a estate or anything like that. He's not attached to a major magic family.
I mean, he's the guy that screams Nazi to me.
Oh,
if we're-
true as
yeah.
well. I mean, he's blonde-haired, blue-eyed. He talks about bloodlines way too much.
Yeah.
To the point that one of his students, who's of a newer bloodline, got made fun of to the point where he stole stuff. We'll come back to that later, maybe. But yes,
Let's come back to that now, because actually that's a character I'd forgotten about until right this moment.
Indeed, Velvet, Mr.
yeah,
Waver.
Iskander, Alexander's master, is
A high school student,
just,
a magical
just a
high
guy
school
who
student.
stole some stuff and decided to summon demons.
And he's so teen. It's painful.
Tiger.
His teacher made
Tiger
fun of him a
Fujimura.
little bit.
Yeah.
And he went off on a giant rant about how he's too great for these people and they'll all bow before him eventually. He just
Right.
has to be given a chance to prove it. And then his teacher was about to enter into the war with an artifact. And the delivery guy gives the artifact to him
He says,
because he's a student of that guy.
and he said he was going there anyway, right?
And so Velvet, our
And so
genius
hard
teen,
cut to him on a jet, just flying away with the artifact.
taking the artifact away.
Ends up
And-
somehow in Japan, but in like a foreign couple's house, it seems. Martha and like an old dude.
So we next rejoin him having mind controlled a couple in a farmhouse
Yeah.
into believing that he is their son
Or grandson or something. Yeah.
or something like that. And he's been stealing their chickens to create the summoning circle so that
Right.
he can kill the chickens and create the
Gotta
summoning
hope they're chickens.
And it's so weirdly fucked up how he's walked into their life, ruined their farming, ruined their ability to go out and do things, and then just summoned this monstrosity of a man.
Yeah, Dylan said he's like a changeling, like a fey creature who's just come into their lives
Yeah.
and taken over. He's not wrong. There aren't really good people in the story when you think about it.
Technically, good people know. Everyone, like we have mass murderers, we have child murderers, we
Maybe one of the little girls.
have... the little girls haven't had a chance to do anything too terrible, but that's
No.
only because...
And
they
and
haven't
one
had
of
a
them
chance.
even went to rescue her friend from the child murderers, right? So she must be considered at this point a good one.
Rin, yeah.
Although, you
Well,
know,
yeah.
that'll probably
Change.
change, I'm sure.
In the next
In the
book-
previous series, it changes.
Right. Yes, yeah.
No, so there aren't any good summoners really. You've got your choice of people doing bad things because they want bad things, or people doing bad things because they want good things. But they're quite happy to like blow up a building to kill one person, or take down a jet to kill one person.
Yeah, I mean, specifically that one guy is, you know,
Yeah,
that's
I
his
mean,
MO.
he's the closest that I could think of, like where his wish would be a good thing, possibly. Not that we know specifically what it is, but he wishes for a better world.
Whatever that
Kamiya
means.
Kiritsugu.
You know, whereas like with the families, with the other families, you kind of feel like they are they're just trying to prolong their clan's lineage, you know, and make
Or
it to
go
the
for
next.
personal power.
The one
Make
guy
it to the
literally
next
kind of
Great
wants
Wall.
to be a vampire, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. But who really knows what happens when you get this power? I mean, surely if it was that powerful, or like that, like world changing, like the first kind of one of these wars would have been the last one, so to speak.
Well, I might be mistaken, but from just reading background stuff, that they were kind of like botched continually until we get to this point. So I'm not sure if this one also gets botched because we haven't watched the second season, or if they actually get to a point where they can make a wish.
So apparently,
It's like-
the Grail decides if there's someone worthy left at the end, and in the previous wars, either no one was left, or the people that were left weren't of sound enough mind to use the Grail.
But we'll watch the next bit of it probably,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll get around to that.
We're already halfway there.
I think I would generally say I would recommend maybe watching it if you're into like a dark fantasy kind of thing. The one problem I have with it is it just seems very similar to a bunch of other stuff, and that's probably because I didn't watch it when it came out. Maybe this is what those things are similar to. But I mean, there again, it is just like a rehash of the premise of the first Fate Stay Night series, just done a bit better. So if you've seen that, maybe you don't need to see this. What do you think, Yash?
I think that I'm very happy that a community that has so much passion about a thing managed to get the thing that they wanted done well. As a Star Trek fan, or perhaps as a Star Wars fan in another life kind of thing, I can understand wanting to see some quality content based on something I like. And I don't know, for me, this is definitely worth a watch. I don't know if it's worth a watch in 2023, as many of the ideas from this have been taken and done in other things, perhaps even more succinctly, maybe faster, maybe better. But I would not call this a waste of time. I would just call it better when it came out than it is now.
Yeah. Certainly, I think at the time, the bad animation, 3D animation in the background would have stood out a lot less. Dill, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if you really are looking for the fusion of Pokemon and a telenovela, this is for you. There's a lot of emphasis on characters specifically. You can see the visual novel. For me, I can see the visual novel roots really, really heavily, right? You continually in almost every episode have like the mysterious appearance of a new character or a new player that may be or may not be super important to how the story is running, and they have their own back stories, and you get a whole bunch of reveals of lineages every now and then that are supposed to be surprising. It's not my jam, so I don't really enjoy that. I will say that it was a lot easier to watch than I was expecting. I was kind of bracing myself for a rough run.
I actually thought it was going to be a bit worse.
Because we did basically the first 12 episodes in a single sitting. But to its credit, it wasn't as difficult to get through as what I was expecting. And I think a large part of that is that they kind of did this kind of story really well, even though it's not the kind of story that I particularly like. I think that it was done pretty well. And then also partly because we could, heckle and make fun of it every now and then.
Yeah. No, it
So
helps.
watching with people helps.
Yeah, I'd say like 6.5 out of 10, probably. Comparatively overall, in considering all anime ever made, kind of thing. But probably at the time, it would have been closer to like a 7.5.
I'm gonna give this a 7. I didn't have as much of a problem with the CGI, and I do enjoy how dense the world is. I actually think that that's adding to it for me.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is great. I just think it's good. It's okay.
So there's a series out now, called, I can't remember, like Kami-sama. It's that one about the cult. The guy gets
Right,
killed,
right.
right, and gets summoned to another world, which turns
Can
out.
I summon God in a world without God? Or something?
Yeah, something like that. Someone could be like that. And the CGI in there is the worst I've ever seen in anything that is not like a homemade product. But I kind of like it now because I've gotten used to it, and it's not as jarring. But I mean, I think this was meant to be taken seriously, whereas the CGI in that show is a joke, you know.
No, but like specifically inserted as a joke.
Exactly. So that's why it's jarring to me when something feels. I mean, the hand drawn stuff is excellent, and then every now and then there's just something that just feels amateurish, which I don't know if it was a result of budget or if it was just what we had to work with at the time, I guess. But other than that, yeah, pretty excellent quality in terms of animation. So yeah, I guess that's it. That's it for us. Yeah, we'll probably do the second half of this show. Why not?
Part 2.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. This has been That Japanese Thing. Ciao for now.
Ciao.
Cheers.